Seeing that we have, thank you. Seeing that we have a quorum, we are now in meeting, and there's no minutes from the previous meeting. I don't have any comments. Is there anybody that would like to make a comment, a public comment on something that's not on the agenda? Anybody over there got anything to say? They need to let us know. Seeing none, we're going to go right on to the grant oh, Julie?
This is not on the agenda. I just want to bring it to our attention and the public's attention. It's Rack It and Stack It. It is the next fundraiser for the park. It's February 25th. It's 9 o'clock. And it's at the Vets Hall Kitchen. And it's a pancake breakfast. It's $5. It includes eggs, pancakes, sausage, and orange juice. And it's up on the website. It's out on social. But come visit us. Every dollar counts.
What date is that?
Thank you. Rack It and Stack It.
What date is that, Julie?
It is February 25th, Jim,
Got
at
it.
Saturday, 9 a.m. Thank you so much.
Got it.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. And that takes us into the regular business that we have today, which is Carlos informing us and us making a decision on whether or not we would recommend pursuing the grant opportunity. Carlos.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity and also calling for a special meeting so we can discuss this grant opportunity. It's an exciting opportunity. It's a grant that could possibly take us to the finish line for the skate park. And so, as I mentioned in the staff report, I was made aware of this grant, and I invited Julie to accompany me in about a half-day workshop where the grant was discussed and the requirements. And after we finished with that workshop, we had a discussion, and we realized that this grant was a great opportunity for the skate park. We approached the ad hoc committee for the board, the skate park ad hoc, which is comprised of President Dean and Director Farmer, along with our acting GM. And they agreed that we should bring this grant to pros, then to the finance committee, and finally to the CCSD board for their consideration. So that's what we're doing here, is providing you the background for it. So getting into the grant itself. So the grant is from the California Department of Parks, Recreation, Office of Grants and Local Services, OGLS for short. And they have a program called the Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. And in that program, there's about $30 million that is available for projects. We can ask for as much as $6 million. And there is no minimum amount for the grant. The CCSD is available or eligible to apply for this grant. And the grant is actually designed for outdoor recreation activities. That's what it's geared for. And it's geared for either creating outdoor recreation or improving outdoor recreation. And the skate park, interestingly enough, is one of those projects that's been highlighted in the grant application as one that is eligible. The nice thing about this grant is that it not only pays for the skate park itself, but it also pays for those additional features like a restroom, parking lot, sidewalk, etc. So that is all covered on the grant. A couple of interesting things here. So let me share my screen, which is what we really want to discuss, which is one of the main requirements of the grant. Let me see this out of the way here. And hopefully you're able to see that screen right there. So the grant actually is a 50-50 match grant. What that means is that This grant is a reimbursable grant only. And as I mentioned in the staff report, the total funds for the project have to be committed at the time when we submit the application. And that deadline, I'll go through the deadline here and shortly, but it's June 1st, 2023, the deadline for submitting that grant application. So here's sort of the breakdown cost of the skate park. So the engineering estimate for the skate park is at a little over $1 million. There needs to be a matching fund for this grant, which is what Skate Cambria has been working on, and they have actually acquired that 50% match. That 50% match includes the $178,000 that the CCSD has committed to contribute towards the skate park. So then the other 50% is a little under $500,000. Because this is a reimbursable grant, that $500,000, the CCSD would have to put that up front and then be reimbursed for that money. So that's the sticky point on this grant, is the CSD would need to be comfortable enough to be able to do that. The CSD won't be spending more than they've committed, because they will be receiving the entire money back. So that is the sticky thing about the matching of the funds. And again, they have to be fully committed by the application, which is June 1st, 2023. This is the timeline, and I'll go through it just briefly here, of the milestones for the grant. So last month and this month, there were some webinars. And as I mentioned, Julie and I attended the webinar. June 1st is the deadline for the application. Once we submit our application, then we are expecting that at the end of the year, winter, there will be announcements made for the projects that are chosen. Now, Julie and I listened to this, and what we were told is if our project is announced as one that moves forward, the likelihood of it being chosen is very, very, very high. So if it is chosen, I think it was almost 100% certainty that we would be awarded the grant. Basically, all of 2024, we would be working on the post-selection requirements. At the end of 2024, our application and recommended project would go to the National Park Service. And then that brings us to when we would start the project. So the start date is late 2024 or 2025. And once the grant is approved, we have 3 years to complete the project. So if the grant is approved in 2025, we would have until 2028 to complete the skate park project. Along with the staff report.
Carlos,
Oh, yes.
can you please send me that piece, PDF?
I will. I think it was included in your
It was included, okay.
packet.
Okay, if not, I'll let you know.
So I'll stop my screen share, and if Julie wants to add anything that I may have forgotten, she was there at the workshop as well.
I just want to add in, President Dean has been wonderfully supportive in saying, please go look for those grants. Let's go look for those grants. And if we find a grant, let's find a way to get it included. This grant takes us across the finish line. And at the end of the day, CCSD's commitment is $178,000 for $1 million park. That's the reality. To Carlos's point, they do need to be willing to commit the funds, but it doesn't get better when it comes to a grant reimbursement, when it's 80% on immediate invoice. In other words, as soon as the invoices are coming in, there's 80% reimbursement. And the final 20% of reimbursement is upon completion of the project. And so we've got enough cash in the front end to get started. And then, of course, those invoices would need to be submitted for direct reimbursement to CSD. But when it comes to grants, I mean, we've gone down the list. As Carlos mentioned, this is a project that is extremely high on getting approved. And once approved, I heard what Carlos heard from the presenter, 99 to 100% funding. So I think you hit all the points, Carlos. I mean, we've certainly done our due diligence and will continue on the fundraising side. Please know, we know that we have a commitment to operation and maintenance as well. We don't know that number yet. It hasn't been determined whether it's 25,000, 50,000. We already do have a $5,000 commitment over 5 years from the Lions Club that's been mentioned before. That's ancillary. That's on the other side. So our continued efforts in fundraising, we'll keep our foot on the gas to keep putting money into an account. But this grant would really fill in the back end of getting us moving and going with construction on the project. So your considerations are deeply appreciated. Jim?
Yes, would it be possible to ask for more? In other words, does it make sense to say it's just because the engineering estimate is $1,020,000? Could you say, well, make it $1,200,000? And then if we got the matching grant and you continued to raise funds, you could make the match, or just not accept the whole extra $100,000 or whatever, just in case there's cost overruns. It's just a thought. I don't want to put this project in jeopardy.
Yeah, I have a thought on that, Jim. And actually, I met with Dick Clark yesterday in regards to the fiscal agency side of this. And so my thought is going to lean on Ray, and that is, we've already got committed funds from the 19,000 we used originally for the consultant, and the 21,200 we've put in, and what CCSD has put in to move these reports along. Ray, my question to you is, can we go back and include those numbers in this grant in order to Jim's point, to go at it a little bit higher so we can make that reimbursable? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can actually answer that. So yes, you can. As we listen to the presentation, we can include all those costs for pre-construction design into the matching fund, which would obviously extend the price, and we can actually ask for a little more. So yes to that, and I think Ray was going to add a little bit as well.
Yeah, yes, yeah, yes to all of the above there. And I would recommend that we do ask for more, like, as part of like contingencies. The challenge though is going to be that the thing to remember is that the funds for the total project cost must be committed at the time when the application is submitted. So basically what this would mean is, say it was a $1.2 million project that we're submitting. That means that we would have to essentially put that into the CCSD budget for the skate park, which would mean in essence like a higher, it would look like that there would be a higher match that the CCSD would have to commit, from the general fund reserves or whatever source we suggest. But yeah, all of that is possible. But just remember that we have to, like, the sticking point is that we do have to commit the entire project cost into the skate park budget, and it could be a tougher sell to the public, but I definitely think it's a reasonable ask, but that's something that we could consider here moving forward when we present it to the finance committee. So, and then eventually to the board.
Right.
Unmute, Steve.
Adolph, what do you got?
Just a couple of questions. One is, is, I'm assuming that we're going to have the project approved by the county and it's already it becomes a shovel-ready project. Is that true? By that 1st of June date?
I think that's probably a right question.
I know, I don't think that's what it's saying. I just think it is, I don't think it means that it's a shovel-ready project. Is that, if that's what you're asking?
Yeah, I'm asking if it had to be.
No, at the application deadline, it doesn't have to be a shovel-ready project.
Julie?
It helps though.
Yeah, well, and we're real close on exemptions right now to Jim's question, and saying it helps. I mean, we're down to about one exemption, and that's a setback exemption. So, what I was gonna add in is what Ray was touching on, and that's the match goes higher as far as CSD's commitment. I mean, but at the end of the day, I just really want to drive that this is reimbursable. I mean, it's a temporary commitment for a long-term gain of infrastructure. So I just want to simplify that in like layman terms, if the public is listening, that this isn't money that's going to come out of, well, it is going to have to be earmarked, but it is going to be reimbursable.
I kind of have a question. I hate to make it complex, but if, let's say we don't get the grant, does the CCSD have to move forward anyway? No, right?
No, if we don't get the grant, we're not committed to.
Right, okay, got it.
fulfill that.
Joyce?
What's the history of them paying back immediately on this kind of a grant? Do we have any history to go on? When the invoices are presented, do they immediately do it, or is there a time lapse? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I'm sure there's a short time lapse as we submit the reimbursement documents. I'm not sure what that timeline is, but we did ask the question of would we have to wait until the project is complete to receive reimbursement? And the answer from the folks at the grant was no. You can submit as soon as you're receiving invoices, you can immediately submit those invoices and get reimbursed quickly for those, up to 80% of the cost. The last 20% is held until the project is complete, and then they will release the last 20%.
That seems reasonable.
Extremely reasonable.
Can I make a motion that we move this forward as suggested by Carlos to the Finance Committee and then the board as expeditiously as possible?
All right, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Joyce is going to second that. And before, I'm just going to throw out to the panel or the attendees, there's 4 attendees. Does anybody from the public want to make a comment? Seeing none, I'll take that to be that you're in the affirmation. So good. We've got a motion and a second to move this grant forward. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries unanimously. Carlos and Harry and Ray, will you please report to the board? And Ms. Dean, if you're watching, we are in full support. Terry, any questions?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. So with regard to the timeline here, in the summer of this year, the application will be reviewed. The recommendation will be announced at winter of 2023. So I'd like to know, why is it that it says here the start date is a year later, late 2024, early 2025? Why is it that we can't begin the project sooner than that?
My assumption we could, but I might be
Well, I'm
wrong.
just going with the timeline that Carlos gave us.
Yeah, so there's actually basically two review panels that will review our application. This winter, at the end of the year, the California Department of Parks, Recreation and Office will review our grant. And then they will pass on that grant to the National Park Service. So there are actually two agencies that will review our grant, and that's sort of the delay on starting the project. The National Park Service will review it at 2024. There's also a couple of post selection requirements that we would need to do. For example, one of those requirements is that we put basically a conservation easement on that property so that the property remains as a park for perpetuity. So that's one of the requirements that we would have to fulfill in that 2024 timeframe.
Okay, if I could just ask you, Carlos, I know you mentioned the name of it, California Parks Recreation, and what is that final word?
Yep. So it's the California Department of Parks and Recreation Office of Grants and Local Services. And in short, it's OGALS, OGALS.
Carlos, you mentioned that it's almost 100% if you're selected for this grant. Are you referring to that first selection by the California department?
That's correct. Yeah.
And this is early to talk about this, but it would be interesting if we had any kind of political connection with people on that staff. And maybe Carbajal or somebody would be on the back end speaking to the national parks. And maybe we do that down the line, but right after our application is submitted, it would be great to have a champion in Congress.
Jim, it would be Jimmy Panetta we would be talking to moving forward.
Right. Has anybody talked to him?
Julie's good friends with him.
Well, I've met him, and we certainly have a really good tie with Panetta's office. So
Thank you.
I think that's an excellent idea, Jim, as we get prepared to get this submitted. I just want to emphasize that, when you look at the list of outdoor recreation, as Carlos mentioned, skate park is right on the list. They're looking for these projects. They are wanting outdoor recreation, and many of these applications, I'm guessing, that are coming in aren't going to be as far along as we are.
Mhm.
The 50% match, of course, is a requirement, but I'm talking about as far as we are along in the project and all other aspects with county engagement. To ADOT's question, does it need to be shovel ready? We're in really good shape as far as what it looks like with elevations and reports and all of it. So the timing is really, really critical, and in Carlos and my humble opinion, very, very good. Super exciting. And Joyce, I just want to give you some reassurance when it comes to reimbursements. I mean, this particular department, it doesn't get much better in guarantee of that money coming back to us as far as proven record, right? Again, they're looking for these type of projects. And one of the things that really speaks to me personally is that we have to put this piece of property in perpetuity for being a permanent park. That's just really meaningful to me personally, because I feel like there's lots of land in this area that was dedicated many years ago for our youth. And some of those agendas and missions have shifted. And it just gives me hope that this piece of property would then be preserved. Again, that's just my personal opinion on that.
Right on. Thank you, Julie. Anybody else want to finish it off? Carlos?
Yeah, well, actually, just two things. One is I see Kermit is on the attendees side. I'm not sure if he has comments or questions, or if you want to bring him in.
Woke up
I'll
late.
leave him.
Tell him to go to the principal's office and bring a note.
And then just the other thing that I was going to mention is so the grant application has a scoring sheet, and looking through the scoring for the skate park would score very high on this sheet of scores. One of the higher scores is to create a new park. And so as we're creating a brand new park, it immediately puts this at a high mark. The other high mark that is also required, or that brings it up to a high mark, is outreach, and how you came about the design. And obviously, Cambria has done a wonderful job out there promoting the skate park, and we've had workshops. So that also gives us a lot of points towards this grant. So, you know, if we're able to get our board to commit to the grant, I'm pretty excited because we're going to have a really good chance of getting this grant for the skate park.
Hell yeah, Carlos, you're gonna have another bathroom to clean. Perfect. I know you're excited.
I
Just
move we adjourn.
Just one question.
Go ahead.
Who's going to write the grant?
I'm sorry.
Who will be writing the grant?
So as far as writing the grant, it'll be a combination of myself, Julie, and Ray.
Okay. And the other question is the CCSD has to make a commitment to the skate park. Is it that 500,000 or is it less than that?
So.
Yeah.
Well, repeat the question again. I'm sorry.
Well, what would the commitment by the what commitment would the CCSD have to make in order to get this grant? How much money?
So as mentioned in the staff report, and I think Ray also mentioned it, we have to have the complete project cost committed with the application. So that is the total cost of the project. That is what the CCSD would commit itself, but obviously there's a match that is being provided. As far as the amount that the CCSD is actually putting is only this 178,000, and then the other 500,000 or so is going to be reimbursed. I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I guess the answer to it is we have to be committed to the full project cost.
Okay, I'm just curious whether or not CCSD, having committed the 178,000, that was okay. That is their basically commitment to the project, not 500 or $1 million or whatever.
Yeah, so that is the one thing that we'll try to explain as we go along this process, is the district won't spend more than what it's already committed, which is a 178. Whatever else the district commits is going to be reimbursed fully.
Okay, thank you.
No more questions. We're gonna get out of here. 9:30. Nice work, everybody. Thank you.
Steve, really quick, I want to deeply say thank you. I don't have the whole team on behalf of Skate Cambria, and the kids, of course, are in school right now, as they should be, at 9:30 in the morning. So I just, on behalf of all of us, the entire team, the kids, thank you.
Right on. Let's go. Get it done. See you, people. Thank you.
All right. See you.
See ya.